Respected Khenpo Sodargye, hello. I am a first-year graduate student majoring in technology, economics, and management. First of all, I want to sincerely thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here and for sharing so many wonderful insights with us. Thank you very much. I feel I have benefited greatly. You also mentioned just now that society today is rather restless. As students on campus, we often find it difficult to devote ourselves wholeheartedly to research. Our minds are often unsettled and distracted. First, I would like to ask the esteemed Khenpo Sodargye, in your view, how should we students cultivate and train our concentration? In addition, I know that you, Venerable Khenpo, have visited many countries. You have always been charitable and have done your utmost to help those in need around you. You also strongly advocate that moral education should start from childhood. As the saying goes, if the youth are strong, the nation will be strong. I would like to take this rare opportunity to ask you, esteemed Khenpo, in your opinion, in our current era, from which aspects should we develop moral education for children? Thank you.
You have raised two questions. The first question for students, their concentration. In fact, concentration is very important. The meditation I just mentioned is actually about concentration. It's not just students who need concentration. Our leaders and entrepreneurs also need concentration. If one lacks concentration when faced with even a little adversity or some criticism from others, their mind will start to waver and they will lose many opportunities. I saw on the television program Yanglan One-on-One that there was a school principal who, because of the significant pressure from others around him, went into hiding for quite a long time. Later, he realized that he lacked sufficient concentration and focus, and so he decided to come back. So I think students need concentration and teachers need it even more. As for students, the main aspect of concentration at school is, actually, as I just mentioned, for students, the absolutely most crucial thing is to focus on studying right now, at this very moment. When you are studying, nothing else is important. I see that in schools, students often waste and lose all their most precious and valuable time. In fact, the tuition your family pays and all the resources you have are hard-earned and hard-fought. But nowadays, many students do not cherish them. The very first thing you should do is to work very hard and diligently, just like when we first started learning the teachings of Buddhism. You could say it was truly working day and night, almost forgetting to eat or sleep, both during the day and at night. Even the time spent sleeping at night was, if I managed to sleep for 5 hours at night, I would feel very ashamed. But if I only slept 2 or 3 hours of sleep, I felt quite satisfied. Almost all the rest of the time was devoted to studying. At that time, I think your concentration and focus will naturally become strong. Otherwise, I see that many students in school are not really attending university, but just muddling through it. They just sit back and watch all sorts of different random and often quite messy movies as well as various TV shows. They spend their days doing nothing of value, muddling through 4 years in a daze. After 4 years of drifting, they haven't learned much at all. In the end, when they go to various management departments, they lack the necessary skills. If you don't have the ability, no one needs you. When it comes to exams, they cram at the last minute, not having studied regularly. Then, they quickly try to read a few books. But knowledge needs to be built over time, day by day and month by month. You can't achieve it by just reading a few books in one day. So to develop concentration, you must first study. After you start studying, as I mentioned earlier, students may have their own set of rules or discipline. Once you have the discipline of a student, your concentration will naturally develop. And when your concentration develops, wisdom will naturally follow. This is a natural law. As for the second question, I think, when it comes to traditional culture, most people here have children of their own. Your responsibility to your children, your role in their education, is extremely important nowadays. Nowadays, many people just send their children to school. But in schools, there isn't really any true moral education. The exam-oriented education in many schools today has harmed a lot of people. Because after all, exam-oriented education is not the most important thing in life. So what is real education? In life, when dealing with others, you need to have compassion, a good conscience, and kindness. This kind of kindness actually needs to be gradually cultivated from a young age, even during the teenage years. Therefore, if we don't understand this, it will truly be very unfortunate in the future. So first of all, family education is very important for everyone. And then every teacher is also extremely important, especially many university professors. I sincerely hope these teachers will take their responsibilities really seriously. I've seen some teachers who are actually a real harm to their students. They don't teach properly, and even university professors don't teach properly. They often say, "You are university students, you should have self-discipline. You can read the books yourselves, I have other things to do." They are just putting on an act. In this way, university students are also very unfortunate and unlucky. This is truly harmful to both oneself and others, so everyone must absolutely take responsibility.
Respected Khenpo Sodargye, hello there. Thank you very much for your sharing just now. And I would like to say, now everything is changing. The only constant is change itself. You see, the world is also impermanent. One moment, the weather may be calm and sunny. The next moment, there could be an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, etc. Society is also changing. Maybe people in a country live peacefully now, but soon they might suffer war because of issues like oil, among others. Even our own hearts are very impermanent. One moment I might be very happy, and the next I suddenly feel inexplicably down. So what I want to ask is, when my own impermanent heart faces all kinds of disturbances in society, how should I adjust myself to cope with these disturbances? How can I, do you think, keep myself in a very happy state? Could you introduce some methods for cultivating the mind, or recommend some books on this topic? Thank you.
In Buddhism, it is said that all phenomena are impermanent, and all phenomena lack inherent self. There is a well-known saying which means that every phenomenon is constantly changing from moment to moment. Our leaders will also inevitably change. Our students will also gradually change. Our courses, including the education system, are also constantly undergoing changes and adjustments. So, in this situation, what kind of mindset should we maintain? On one hand, we should be fully prepared and ready for an impermanent environment. On the other hand, we should also have a clear and thorough understanding of our own wisdom. In fact, in Buddhism, contemplating impermanence is regarded as the most important and fundamental practice among all forms of spiritual cultivation. But because Buddhism emphasizes the contemplation of impermanence, does that make life seem pessimistic, negative, or escapist? Absolutely not. Nowadays, many people think that perhaps Buddhism is about seeking to escape from this world or being irresponsible towards society. Actually, I believe that, in fact, according to Mahayana Buddhism, we should, as some professors mentioned in their inscriptions today, benefit others and ourselves even more. True benefit to others and oneself arises from the Buddhist perspective of wisdom and compassion. At this point, you need to realize and first understand that all phenomena are indeed impermanent. We can't hold on to an unrealistic hope that things will never change. This includes some people's attachment to status, to relationships, or to family. When there is even a slight change, people start to complain and blame others, saying, "You once promised me certain things, you said you'd never change, so why have you changed now?" In fact, all phenomena are indeed constantly changing. Our own minds are changing, and so is the world. At that time, on one hand, we need to grasp and understand the law of change in all phenomena. On the other hand, we should always be fully prepared for anything that may happen. For example, when you practice, you contemplate the impermanence of all phenomena and realize that your own life is also impermanent. Today, a professor said he went to a sky burial site in Tibet, and after he arrived there, he discovered, in the end, when it comes down to it, our bodies ultimately become nothing more than that. You spend your whole life blindly running around, but in the end, after everything, your body is cremated or disappears at the funeral home. If you acknowledge the next life, then by relying on good deeds, you can continue to live happily. But if you don't acknowledge this, there's really no difference between a person and a flower. Once a flower is burned, it's gone. So, the so-called beauty and brilliance of life is, in reality, also nothing more than that. Sometimes, when we reflect on some real and important truths, many of life's principles can actually be realized.
Respected Khenpo Sodargye, hello. I am from the School of Business Administration, a graduate student in the MBA program class of 2013. I just listened to your lecture and I was truly inspired. I have a few personal questions, and I would like to discuss them with you. I also hope you can offer some guidance. We all know that in Taiwan, China, or in some coastal cities of mainland China, and even in Western societies, many successful entrepreneurs all have their own religious beliefs. In fact, our society today also needs entrepreneurs who are responsible, moral, ethical, and benevolent. But what we see now in Chinese society is that there are many entrepreneurs who lack morality, responsibility, and benevolence. They can no longer truly be called entrepreneurs. For example, recent incidents like the gutter oil scandal or the tainted milk powder cases. They lack basic humanity and morality and only care about their immediate interests. I think this phenomenon is something that deserves our deep reflection. As a result, many foreign media outlets and journalists or people abroad often say that the Chinese nation is a people without faith. So here, I would like to ask Khenpo, how do you understand this? What is the status of religious belief among ordinary people and among Chinese entrepreneurs? Thank you.
The question you just raised is very good. Because indeed, what everyone needs to reflect on deeply is that we need to have a kind of faith. This kind of faith is a responsible faith, because when a person stands in their own position and also in the position of others at this time, you could say there is a way of thinking that involves exchanging oneself with others. Now, including things like unsafe gutter oil, tainted milk powder, and all kinds of fake consumer products such as these, when they endanger people's own lives and health, people are increasingly realizing that, in fact, conscience is very important. Now, including in Germany, the United States, and many other places, products from many other countries, especially food, are banned from entering. What is the reason for this? It's something we can reflect on deeply and thoughtfully. Therefore, like in foreign countries, for example, Kazuo Inamori, his business management is actually fundamentally rooted in faith and trust. At this time, people naturally have a strong sense of security. So I especially hope that gradually, all around the world, many entrepreneurs will truly value the concept of morality, kindness, and ethics. This is extremely important. I also sincerely hope that many entrepreneurs and business managers will progressively gain a broader and more comprehensive understanding of society. I also believe that in the future, people's mindsets in all aspects will gradually become more open and accepting. After this, it should be said that true faith will not cause the slightest harm to human ethics or behavior. Of course, Buddhism is also strongly opposed to superstition. Many people blindly believe in this or that. That is absolutely not encouraged in Buddhism, so we are very much against superstition. However, we strongly advocate for right faith. Only with right faith does society have hope. Whether for entrepreneurs or for any other administrative departments, it should be very reliable. So I think, well, actually, not only entrepreneurs, in fact, just the day before yesterday, I also mentioned this in different schools. In fact, even among leaders and party members, it would probably be best if they had faith in the future. Because in other countries, including present-day Russia, members of the ruling party are allowed to have religious beliefs, with religious faith, generally speaking, a person's overall qualities. Nowadays, many of the world's top intellectuals and scientists are people of faith. Among the approximately 300 people who have won the Nobel Prize, only 21 had no faith at all. So when we observe from multiple perspectives, in fact, faith has a truly tremendous ability to enhance a person's overall qualities.
Master, hello. I would like to ask you something. I very much agree with what you said, Master. The integration of religion and modern civilization is actually not contradictory. Because I have also read the Da Vinci Code, which also discusses this kind of topic. So I am actually very interested in how religion manages social civilization as well. For example, there are some countries now that may have non-secular governments. They often involve religion in the overall management of society as a whole. In some particular cases, religion can help to guide people's beliefs and values in a positive direction. This allows the mechanisms of social governance to develop in a positive way. But in some cases, the combination of religious belief and political power results in those beliefs being distorted by so-called universal truths. Religion not only fails to play a role in governance, but actually pushes society into the abyss. Master, could you please, from the unique and insightful perspective of your religion and Buddhist philosophy, share your thoughts with us, or perhaps offer some ideas on how we can ensure that genuine religion and faith serve our social governance and government and guide them in a consistently positive direction while discarding the misguided paths or destabilizing factors that may arise along the way. Thank you very much for your attention and support.
Of course, there are now more than 2,000 different religions in the world. Each religion has its own unique meaning and value for existence, as well as its own methods of governance, systems of belief, and philosophical ideas. The religion that I personally study and follow myself is known as Mahayana Buddhism. The religious philosophy and core teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, one could say, is fundamentally and deeply altruistic in nature. If the philosophy is altruistic, then within modern enterprises and organizations, we often talk about how in the past people advocated for being completely selfless, dedicated to benefiting others, and wholeheartedly serving the people. In fact, these are also values promoted within Mahayana Buddhism. It's just that its philosophy is a bit broader in scope. In Mahayana Buddhism, the aim is to serve all sentient beings and all forms of life, helping them to be free from suffering and attain happiness. So, with this kind of religious philosophy, not only is there no conflict, it should actually play a positive role. Of course, as for other religions, it's not appropriate for us to discuss them here. Every religion, some are rather extreme, while others are relatively passive and gentle. Some, in fact, after you study them, can actually be detrimental to business management. Some may even be quite harmful. As for these matters, as I mentioned earlier, Buddhism places great emphasis on wisdom. You must use wisdom to observe and discern, and this wisdom should be accompanied by skillful means. You need to combine skillful means with wisdom, and add to that an altruistic and great compassionate heart. In this way, one could say that such religious philosophy is particularly well suited to modern business management.
Hello, my respects to the Master. I am a graduate student from the 2006 Sino-US program at Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics. I am grateful to our university for providing us with such a great platform for academic exchange. At the same time, I am also the Vice President of the Jiangxi Women Entrepreneurs Chamber of Commerce. Some of our women entrepreneurs, when discussing Buddhist teachings, have a thought which is actually quite simple. That is, Buddhism teaches us that good people are rewarded with good outcomes. Why is it that in modern society, this never seems to happen? For example, Steve Jobs. He was a great philanthropist, so why did he die so young? Thank you, Master. I truly appreciate your guidance.
I think it is possible, because Steve Jobs had already given what he was meant to give. He changed many important concepts in the world, particularly in technology and design, influencing how people think about and use these innovations in their everyday lives. That was also as well his own goal. Steve Jobs went to India to study in his early 20s and later studied in the UK. What were his wishes and aspirations? He wanted to create something truly beautiful for all of humanity. As a result, his Apple products truly delivered a lasting sense of beauty to everyone. Steve Jobs himself was not attached to longevity. He treated every day as if it were his last. So, the day his life ended was in fact, without a doubt, truly his last day. In Buddhism, we typically do not say that everyone must necessarily live a long life. Throughout history, whether people did good or bad deeds, there have always been many whose lives were either long or short. Actually, in this very life, our lifespans can be long or short. On one hand, this is related to our spiritual practice in this life. On the other hand, it is also related to the karma and conditions from previous lives. So I think, regarding Steve Jobs' creations, it truly would have been a bit of a pity, honestly, if he had passed away before completing his life's work, but he happened to finish all his work just in time. Therefore, after providing such an incredibly wonderful opportunity to the entire world, this should be considered a very good thing.
I am grateful to the Master. After hearing what you said, that discipline, concentration, and wisdom are a path to happiness in life, but in today's society, all five poisons are present. killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxication. And especially in today's society, as a teacher from Jiangxi University, I am also very concerned about this. My colleagues, too, are eager to find an answer. As a teacher, how can I guide my own children and my students in a society where all 5 poisons are present to uphold discipline, move towards meditation, and ultimately attain true wisdom in life? Thank you. I am sincerely grateful.
I basically just explained this principle earlier, actually. To be honest, as I just mentioned earlier, on the one hand, we have several reasons to feel content and happy right now. Why is that? For instance, when I was young, life was very poor and difficult. Even if I received just a few small pieces of candy in a single day, I couldn't bear to eat them immediately. They were incredibly sweet, delicious, and precious. I've mentioned this in a book before. Once, when my father and I were passing by a certain place, we ate a bowl of noodles. Now, even after 30 or 40 years, I still haven't forgotten it. Back then, it just tasted especially sweet and delicious. Even now, when I pass by that place, I still look for that same delicious taste. But I can't find it anymore. Because now in this modern, fast-paced world, our ears, our tongues, in fact, all 5 of our senses have already been overstimulated. So now nothing tastes sweet, nothing tastes especially good, and nothing feels especially nice to wear. In the past, for those of us here who are a bit older, just buying a new piece of clothing for the family would make us incredibly happy and excited. But nowadays, many college students just scoff if you buy them a piece of clothing. Even if you buy them nice clothes, they think it looks terrible. But if you buy them something that looks really bad, they think it looks great. Even those with jeans that have ripped knees, especially the really revealing kind, they absolutely think those look great. Very trendy, very fashionable, and really good looking indeed. But it seems that nobody really likes the more neat, well-organized and tidy clothes anymore. So in this day and age, it really is quite a strange era and also a unique and special one. At a time like this, if we don't reflect on ourselves, it's hard to say precisely what kind of path we're on at this point. I remember there's a famous saying in Tibetan Buddhism, which, just to be clear, goes like this. No matter how bad the times are, no matter how poor the environment is, one must still uphold noble conduct. This is indeed very important. As for each of us, how much we can actually achieve if you can't uphold all the precepts against killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying, even if you can only keep just one of them. For example, if you refrain from stealing or from killing, even if you only keep one precept, in Buddhism, we still regard that as truly observing a precept. So, whatever we are able to do, no matter how much or how little, still counts, as long as we keep making progress in a positive direction. That is always progress, especially when compared to being stuck in a negative environment.
I am a graduate of the China-Australia MBA program. I would like to ask a question regarding Bodhicitta. It is a fundamental core concept in Mahayana Buddhism and also a precious gift that all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas bestow upon sentient beings. We too as well have this intention to benefit others. But in real life, in our daily lives, what do we often encounter? When we have the intention to benefit others, it often comes into conflict with our own interests. When faced with many conflicting situations, how should we make choices? Especially in the context of running a business. Because we also no company wants to harm others, right? Everyone wants to benefit all their customers, even to the point of wanting to benefit customers all over the world. But within this, there are, in fact, numerous conflicts. Conflicts between the company and employees, conflicts between us and society, or internally, conflicts of interest with our families. At this time, how should we adjust and judge between bodhicitta and self-interest?
It seems that many students at your university wear clothes similar to mine. Today, our chairs are also red. What you just said was very good. In fact, as many of you may know, in Mahayana Buddhism, there is a concept called bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, some of you here may not have heard of it before. It's a new term. Bodhicitta means that, as I just mentioned, wholeheartedly serving everyone without any self-interest. In fact, to truly be completely selfless at that moment, whether it's possible or not, is very difficult. To have not even a trace of selfishness and to help others. This kind of mindset is called bodhicitta, Of course, this can sometimes conflict with your own family or your own business, and it's normal for there to be some conflicts with employees or clients as well. But in my opinion, the genuine and true bodhicitta in Buddhism, nowadays, for the whole world and all of humanity, this mindset is extremely important. It is the fundamental essence of Buddhism. It is also the most precious and valuable spiritual nourishment for human society today. If all of us have an altruistic heart, society will be very safe in the future. This includes many products, as well as interactions and communication between people. Everything would be trustworthy and based on integrity. But nowadays, many people, because their selfishness is too strong and their altruism is too weak, that's why it's so difficult for people to truly trust each other nowadays. Even among close friends and family members, there is often a noticeable lack of trust. Why is it that in many families today, even family members don't actually know each other's bank card information? No one actually dares to let the other know. There is simply mutual distrust. I've also heard that with many property ownership certificates, people only put their own names on them and don't want anyone else included. Many of these problems are due to a lack of altruism. So at times like this, even though there are conflicts, I think everyone should truly understand something: the genuine importance of having an altruistic mindset. In whatever we do in the future, as long as we sincerely consider others, when you manage a business, it's not just about serving yourself. At such times, your business and your team will also develop and grow together. Because people are very smart, and eventually, all selfishness and self-interest will ultimately lead to failure. So no matter what, we must continue to promote and uphold altruism.
Respected Khenpo, I sincerely thank you very much for your teachings, and I truly appreciate your guidance. I would like to ask you a question. You just spoke about altruism. We also really want to be altruistic, even though our abilities are quite limited. But sometimes when we want to help others, how can we make others also feel truly happy? Sometimes we want to be altruistic, but others may not necessarily feel happy about it. Is there a skillful way to do this so that when we want to help others, they genuinely feel happy as well? Could you please share some methods for them? Thank you.
When we want to benefit others, there are two approaches. One approach is, for example, when we make offerings or give to others. For instance, when I often provide financial support to some university students, on the surface, these students seem very happy, because when they receive the money, they are quite pleased. So they will also feel happy. But sometimes, even though I want to benefit others, the other person isn't happy about it. For example, when some students make mistakes, I start to criticize or punish them. At that moment, they are not happy. So it's very difficult for me to make them feel happy right away in that situation. But no matter what, our intention is good. We are trying to help them. And if it is truly beneficial and helpful for that person in the future, then in Buddhism it is said that any means or method is acceptable, as long as it brings others temporary or ultimate benefit. Then such actions and methods are all acceptable to us. Therefore, we should judge based on our own wisdom and abilities. There may be all kinds of ways to benefit others. But among these methods, which skillful means should we choose? Perhaps we need to rely on our own wisdom to make that decision.
I'm very happy to attend this management meeting today and to study Eastern sage culture. Speaking of Eastern culture, there are the three schools: Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism all place great emphasis on the human mind and spirit. My own understanding of management is this: management can be divided into levels. The highest level goes from things to people and then to the mind. Managing both the body and the mind at the same time may be considered the highest level of personal mastery. After listening to your thoughtful talk just now, I found myself feeling very inspired. However, I do have a question that I would like to ask you. In your heart, what is it that you believe in the most?
What I believe in most is Shakyamuni Buddha. Why do I believe in him? Because what he taught is the truth. So in fact, what I believe in is the truth itself.